Welcome to the What a Play podcast. We are your hosts, Jacob and Lucas. And to begin, we're going to start with the news part of this. On Black Monday, which they should really call Dark Monday, it's not a race thing, it's the darkest point in people's lives as a coach. Ron Rivera was fired, and we all anticipated this coming. Joe Harris pays for the team, buys the team, and Ron Rivera is there. We've seen this movie thousands of times. The new owner buys the team. They usually get rid of the coach. They bring in someone that they think is the best shot for them. But when you heard Ron Rivera got fired, Lucas, what was your first thought?
I think it made sense. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a shocker. I think everyone kind of saw it coming. My first thought was probably this is Eric Bieniemy's team now. I think I think that's where they're gonna go. In my opinion, I think they would promote internally, give Bieniemy the role. Rivera, he's been a solid coach throughout his whole career, but I think he's definitely I don't want to say past his prime, but he's probably not where the Commanders want to go moving forward. And I think they did it probably in the most respectful way, like letting him finish out the season and then getting ready to take out the old guard and put in the new guard for the next upcoming season. So I like the move.
I too like the move. It needed to happen. We all kind of figured it was going to happen. I think what everyone kind of expected was Ron being there. First off, he had to deal with all Daniel Snyder's bull and basically running the team, all at these owners' meetings because Daniel Snyder wouldn't go. He would be on his boat in like Napoleon's birth island, whatever the place he was, to avoid all kinds of things. But if I'm not sure if it's Eric Bieniemy's team. I think he's up there, but I think if you're Joe Harris, you got to make a splash at some point. And we were talking to some people that could bring in a little bit later. But I think if you're Joe Harris, maybe you try to splash first. Maybe it doesn't happen, but you at least talk to those people.
Yeah. Well, I think the Commanders, they're not the most flashiest destination for coaching, opportunities. Um, they're gonna get who they're gonna get. They're not gonna get those top guys. That's why I think it probably Bieniemy's a good coach. So I don't know. I think he's probably their best bet. I don't see them getting a Ben Johnson or a Belichick, obviously, or a Vrabel. They seem like they would kind of get like what's left, and I think they'd probably be better off just promoting internally.
Well, we would talk about that in the open head coaching vacancies and who you think they would be best for. But the Falcons, they didn't waste any time. They fired Arthur Smith very quickly.
Yeah.
And I said this last week on the What a Play podcast. I said what Arthur Smith has done to decide to let's not use Bijan at all. Let's not throw the ball to Kyle Pitts when healthy at all. To let's change the quarterback basically every week is criminal. It's criminal to not use those guys. And you said, okay, Desmond Ridder does not work. Let's put in Taylor Heinicke. Oh, wait, Heinicke got hurt. Let's put back in Ridder. Heinicke's back healthy. Let's put back in Heinicke. Oh, we don't like it. Let's put back in Ridder. Like, these things keep happening. And you just gotta wonder if you're Arthur Blank, at what point do you say, all right, I'm just bringing in somebody to just take over. Let's go. I'm tired.
Yeah, I didn't really love the Arthur Smith hire from the beginning. Titans OC, he was. I mean, he's 7-10 every season he coached. Like he was okay, but like you were saying, like it's a fireable offense not to use the young stars that this team has invested in. whether it's Kyle Pitts, Drake London, or Bijan. It really makes no sense. And Arthur Blank's not looking for a mediocre team. They haven't been great for a long time. And Arthur Smith was not the guy to get them there. So I don't know who they're going to be looking at this offseason, but definitely the right decision. And, I'm happy that they fired him, as quick as possible because he needed to get out of there.
Well, I think what was happening is you could just, like, as bad as the offense was, and it was bad, don't get me wrong, their defense was somehow much worse. Their offense was bad, but their defense was much worse. They could not stop anything. There would be plays where they're like, oh, okay, that's a good defense. That's a good defensive play. That's a good defensive drive. And then they go to the end of the game and they were like as if you put bread inside a thing of water. Like it just fell apart. It was gone. And you're like, what are we doing? There's just nothing there. There's no defense at all. And that's the concerning thing. Because you do got two good corners out there. You have A.J. Terrell and Jeff Okudah. You should be better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely have the talent. It's not a bad destination for a coach, I believe. I think the Falcons could get a lot of looks come this offseason, but they definitely need to change.
Absolutely. This was a surpriser until what started to happen yesterday. The Titans fired Mike Vrabel. Now, I thought, okay, maybe they'll trade him if it got to that point. But I was like, this is a guy you build around. You're going to lose Derrick Henry, more than likely. You're getting rid of Ryan Tannehill at the end of the year when you can. You just couldn't go in a complete other direction. And then I look, and they say, well, they just fired Vrabel. And the only thing that came into my mind was, I guess if the Patriots do decide to go in a direction like this, Vrabel they don't have to trade for Vrabel at this point. That's the only thing I could come up with. Because it made no sense.
From Tennessee's perspective, yeah, it makes no sense. Vrabel was honestly the best thing about the Titans. And I get it. They hired this GM, and it's not who Vrabel wanted, so there was probably dissension, in the organization, and they chose to stick with the GM and get away from the coach. Especially from the GM's perspective, like he gets hired, and his coach doesn't even want him there. So I'm sure that led to disagreements to things, especially leading to the offseason, leading to the draft, getting your guys. I'm sure there was a lot of disagreements and made things harder than it had to be. So, of course, it makes sense that he wants to go ahead, and as an organization, they want to go ahead and get a coach that'll be on the same page. But, I mean, Vrabel was like, I think you messed up when, as soon as you fire your head coach, everyone's thoughts around the league is like, can we get Vrabel? Like, even if you have a good coach, it's like, is Vrabel better than our coach? And I think a lot of fans were thinking that when he got let go. As a Patriots fan, with the news we got today, I think he's going to be the next coach in New England. I could be wrong, but I'm not. It made me I would be much more upset today with the news of Belichick being out if Vrabel was still a head coach in Tennessee. The fact that he's available, I'm not as upset about it.
And what Lucas is talking about is the Patriots had decided to part ways with Bill Belichick. And it wasn't really about how. It was really about how and not the why. The why we saw the on-field product. It was terrible. But, I mean, your defense, it's obviously Belichick can still coach defense. That's obvious. The problem is you don't draft well, and the offense, even though you can say, well, it's not completely him, it's everyone else, I get it. But your offensive line is terrible. The best things about that team, your tight ends and your running backs. You lost Ramondre Stevenson during the year. Your quarterback situation's in flux. Your wide receivers can't get open. Your best guy's Juju Smith-Schuster. He's barely there half the time. Like, these are things that can't happen to you. And what happened, it wasn't, like, from what I could read from Tom Pelissero this morning, was Tom said there was an extensive conversation on Monday, and there was a little bit of conversations on Tuesday about, is there still a possibility we can work with each other if we change and advise roles and do this and do that, and they just never come to an agreement. Now, how I read into that is we had a conversation for a couple hours of how we could do this, and we realized it wasn't going to happen. So the way I took it was, we had this conversation, it didn't work out. How do we part in a positive way that gives Bill what he wants, which is still the coach, and what we want, which is we need a new direction. I think they were trying to find that very lazy Susan way of doing it, and this was the best outcome they could come up with.
Yeah, from the beginning of the season to, I mean, yesterday, I was saying the same thing. I was saying we need to keep Belichick. It's, I mean, you look at so many teams that they just cannot find the right coach, and it takes sometimes decades to find a solid coach, and that's sometimes what a team needs to get over the hump. You know, if you're going to use a good example, like the Eagles this year, they have a possibility of being one and done in the playoffs when they almost won the Super Bowl last year. Why? Because it comes down to coaching. Coaching is a big part of the NFL, and we have, or had, the greatest coach of all time on our team. So to say we need to get rid of him because we had a few bad years, to me was like a little, you know, it was a hard pill to swallow, but I think it's happening for a reason. I think Robert Kraft is under the assumption that, like, we're going after Vrabel.
Right.
I think he's our guy. I think if you watch Vrabel's Hall of Fame speech when he got inducted to the Patriots Hall of Fame, it sounded like he loved New England. He misses New England, and it's not the best opportunity. I mean, we won how many? 4 games this season? Like, when you look at the opportunities that are possibly going to be available, the Eagles head coaching spot is possibly going to be available. That team is a Super Bowl caliber team. So why would you want to go to the Patriots? But if you look at it, Vrabel can mold his entire team. He can pick his quarterback. He has plenty of money off season to get the guys that he wants. I'm sure he can have a say if he's not going to be the GM and who he wants as his GM. You have a top 3 draft pick. It's not, and he's a New England native, so it makes sense. And I think it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to be upset because I don't know who we're going to get. But I really want Vrabel, and I think the stars are aligned to get Vrabel.
Let me ask you this, because I want to ask you this question, because I've never gotten a straight answer of this. If you don't get Vrabel, who would you be willing to take? Who would you go and say, okay, that would not be a bad, at the point that we are at, we bring in this guy?
You got to go
not on the staff.
Not on the staff. Well, you got to go someone younger because, like, what would be the point? I'm pretty sure Pete Carroll's staying with the Seahawks organization. If I read that right, just not as the coach.
We will talk about that. It's very convoluted, but we will talk about it in a second.
Because you could say, I mean, Pete Carroll used to be the head coach of the Patriots. But I mean, you don't want Pete Carroll because how many years of coaching left does he have? You want someone younger that could be there. You can look at the flashy people like a Ben Johnson, but in reality, what are the chances that Ben Johnson is going to come to New England? Just like I said, like, yes, I mean, I feel like it's tailor fit for Vrabel, but as someone in Ben Johnson's position probably wouldn't want to come to New England. It's tough, man. I think at this point I'm in the boat of it's Vrabel or nothing. I don't know if I really want anyone that's available. besides him.
Let
Besides
me
like
let me pitch this.
on Mayo.
Let me pitch this to you. You can say yes or no, but if it's not Vrabel, would you be okay with if they went for Jim Harbaugh? Would you be okay with it?
Uh, I would say no, only because I would see issues with Harbaugh and Bob Kraft. That's I think. I mean, obviously, the reason why Belichick's not our coach is because of issues with Mr. Kraft, and I think Harbaugh is a he's got the personality and the fit where I think it's going to be too much of a transition from Belichick to him. I think you need someone that's used to the culture. So for that reason, I say no. But he's a great coach. I'm not saying he's not a great coach. Any team that gets him, if he's going to go to the NFL this offseason, is a lucky team. So
Because like I feel, and the reason I put up Jim Harbaugh's name in that one was because he has an ability of taking a team. First off, he's a very passionate coach. He's very passionate. The reason I put him up there is I think even if you bring in a GM, you want like a Vrabel, and I think this would probably be part of the Vrabel deal. Will be we bring in a GM, but you have the final say on a lot of what we're doing. Not saying like you make the selection, but you have the final say on. Okay, I can work with that, or nah, I think we should look at some other thing. I think that's what Vrabel brings you, and I think that's what Harbaugh can bring you if you were to go in that direction. But it's a very interesting question that I do think a lot of Patriots fans do need to ask. One of the reason I said that was not the shocking firing was Pete Carroll not being a head coach. He was not fired. Let's specify that. He was not fired. He was kind of Bruce Arians visioned in a way. If you remember what happened with Bruce Arians, he kind of retired, kind of slid up at the same time. This is kind of the same way. And it's kind of weird, Lucas, because I don't think we ever saw a 24-hour period where Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick would not be coaching at any point in football. I don't think we ever saw that. Because I was like, hang on. And because you realize these guys are all the same age. Pete 72, Nick 72, Belichick 71. They're all the same age. Is that just the trend of, okay, we're going to go with a younger guy? Because now Tomlin is the longest tenured coach. He might also be the oldest coach, if I remember correctly. He's 60 years old. So there's a vastly different position. I was just shocked.
I think the league has changed a lot, and not to say, of course, Belichick is still a great coach, and I think Pete Carroll's still a great coach, and so is Saban. I just think when people think of football now, they think of more flashier quarterbacks, things to that nature. When those coaches were in their prime, it was like pocket passers, like Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Brady Manning, all those type of players. It's a different mold of player now, and I think not to say that one way is better than the other, but I think when people think of successful football teams, they're looking at the Ravens and they're looking at the Chiefs, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts. So I think they view success differently, and I think that's why these old coaches are kind of getting the boot. And Tomlin could be next. I mean, there's rumblings that Steelers fans are not happy with Tomlin at this point. So even though they're in the playoffs, it's not looking good.
Do you feel like that's because of all recency bias, though? Like with Lamar's success, with Kansas City's success, and even just the last 5 years, that's all recency bias. You look at what I'm not saying like we have to look at the whole tenure. I'm saying you just look of for an example, Pete Carroll had the Seahawks in the playoffs last year. Like,
Yeah.
they were a terrible defense, but they were in. They were rolling with Geno Smith, and it was like the greatest thing they have ever done. And then you look at like Belichick, like what was going on with the Patriots, and he was working with it. He was making it work. Even when it was Cam Newton, they were making it somewhat work. So these were things I think, like obviously you can't deny good coaching. Like we saw that with Nick Saban. Nick Saban was a great coach, great college coach. And probably would have been a great pro coach if he would have stayed in the pros. Because he was that smart, he understood, he was I think the thing that we all like took when Nick Saban left, very rah-rah guy, as in it's college, it's great, we're doing this, I'm gonna control everything, it's great. And they brought in when the Seahawks brought in Pete Carroll, we thought the same thing. And I don't know if you saw the press conference with Pete Carroll. He got very emotional. Pete Carroll is not very much an emotional guy. I mean, you see him cry in these press conferences every once in a while, but not like a Dick Vermeil or anything like that, where he cried basically every press conference. But he was just like this. Like you could see, obviously, he's like, my coaching philosophy was, and I think a lot of these older coaches, and I think we can take something from this, is instead of what I taught them in the classroom and this is what we're going to do on Sunday, I taught them how to be better people, which created a better product on the field, which is what we were all rooting for. So I think Pete Carroll's going to move up into a supposed advisory role, similar to Bruce Arians. I don't think this is what he wants to do. I think this is what he's being forced to do. Because I think if Pete Carroll could coach, he would coach forever. He has that kind of energy. He brings that kind of energy to the team. You could tell that his guys root for him. You can tell that they never lost what he was saying. I just think, at times you get to a point where the team's just not as good and you don't have the fluctuation of talent or money. And it just happens. It's unfortunate. Very much so, but at the same time you're like, he's still a really good coach. And that's how I keep coming back to Pete Carroll. I don't I don't see anyone else in a way that could take over what he did. If Let me say it this way. If Pete Carroll does not have a statue in Seattle in the next 5 years, there's something wrong with Seattle.
Yeah.
That's my vision of it.
Yeah. Same with Belichick in New England. Especially,
Exactly.
I'm happy we've finished on, mutual terms. Like we've both come to the decision, not like Belichick was fired, Monday or Thursday
Exactly.
morning, whatever.
Yeah. But also, I guess I couldn't anticipate anything less from the Patriots to drag something out. That seems to be the Patriots. Like, if they have to put something in the media, it's dragged out for as long as it can be. Like, we're just not going to talk about it
Yeah,
until it happens.
I was very I was honestly thinking last night that Belichick might be staying in New England because I mean you were hearing all the news about all the coaches and nothing out of New England. I was like, maybe. But as soon as I turned on my phone this morning, it's the first thing I saw, and I was like, but it's all right.
Right. So now we move into the New York, talking about the Giants. Wink Martindale, who I think should be a head coach, by the way. Wink Martindale's a great coach. He resigns from the Giants. It was talk all during the season that him and Dable didn't really get along, and that Wink was how long was Wink going to be there? And then we get to the off season, and then I see a report that says Wink is staying, and I said, "Well, that's interesting." And then I look a couple hours later, and it says Wink Martindale resigned. And there's not a whole lot of information out there, but it just keeps coming back to the same. Like, what happened? What was the point that this happened? It was just shocking because I like Wink Martindale. I like what he brings. I like what he did in Baltimore. I like what he did in New York. I think he should be a head coach. And I think as we get into the next portion of this, there will be a lot of defensive coaches becoming head coaches. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah, yeah. If you've seen, I think the amount of points allowed in the NFL from a few years ago to now, the numbers drastically dropped, and I think the NFL doesn't like that and expects some rules to be changed in the NFLPA because the NFL wants points scored. Points scored for a casual fan is more exciting football. And this year, I mean, defenses were really good. Offenses were stopped a lot, and I think defenses have caught up with offenses. And so when it comes to this, teams will hire these defensive coordinators to be their head coaches, but expect some rules to change, and then in a couple of years, the offenses will be back on it, dropping 30, 40 a game. So
Yeah, and I'm expecting that. I think if you're the NFL, in terms of defense plays, you got to say, okay, what point do we just get a say? At what point do we go and say, hey, it's on us. Like we need something. Pass interference is all on you guys. We can't do anything special. So why can't we get calls to go our way? Because you look at these defensive teams, they're just like, eventually we got to make a play. Eventually we got to get something to go our way. And that is yet to happen. So I wonder if that's going to be this point.
yeah,
I don't know, maybe. So we're going to talk about this. But I think there's three teams I'm concerned about. I think as we head into the playoffs on the AFC and NFC. I have first off, I should have put slash two other teams on this, but I have the Eagles. They limped into the playoffs. You won one game and 6 games. How does that happen? You were 10-1, then you lost to San Francisco, you lost to Dallas, you lost to Seattle with Drew Lock. You go beat the Giants. You lost to Arizona and you beat the Giants. You lost to the Giants. How does that happen? How does this happen?
because Shane Steichen's not there. Call that offense anymore.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, I don't think it's just Steichen. I think when they lost Gannon too, they lost their identity of what they were. You saw with touchdowns this year. You saw with touchdowns, they could not stop anybody. They couldn't defend the run as well. You look at sacks. I think the highest total of sacks is 47 this year, or 50 sacks. Not the Eagles had 70 sacks last year. So there's an obvious difference. But I think if you look at the landscape of the Eagles, first off, there was a lot of things that were going on that would never fly in a lot of these situations. Darius Slay getting his knee scoped in December or late November for no reason. Why are you getting it scoped now? What I'm telling you, he got it scoped December. I think it was December 15th. Why? There's still a month of the season to go. Why are you doing it now? That's something you wait till the off season or to the bye week. Why are you doing it now? It made no sense. That would never fly in most of these places. Yet they chose to do it then. You got rid of, if I'm 8 key starters, 2 linebackers, a corner, and your back safeties. You're a defensive end. You lost these guys. These guys were good, valuable team players that did what they had to do. But at the same time, it's like you see Jalen Hurts has not played as well. They're running attack. They don't run the ball. You brought in DeAndre Swift, and yet you don't run the ball. You brought in Rashawn Penny, you don't activate him half the time. At some point, run the ball. Use the offensive line you got. You don't run the ball, you can't pass protect. A.J. Brown is freaking out on the sidelines for no reason. There's nothing. And I keep seeing, well, the Eagles are going to fire Nick Sirianni. I'm like, this is a vastly different picture we saw last year. We were all saying, oh my gosh, look at this. Nick Sirianni's in the Super Bowl. This is fantastic. He's a great football coach. And then the next thing you know, he's on the hot seat. Well, he's not even on the hot seat. He's on the freaking griddle at this point. Like, he's just there, and he's not doing anything. And then you decide, okay, we're going to get rid of Desai. We're going to put Matt Patricia, which was a really dumb decision, by the way. You say, okay, Matt Patricia is going to save us. Did you see New England? Did you see Detroit? That guy ain't saving anybody. He would be the guy who would throw a life preserver into the water and expect to jump through it. That's what he would do. He would hope that would save him. Because at this point, this doesn't work. Nothing works. You can't run the ball. You can't pass the ball. You don't have any time possession. They lost the time of possession battle to Arizona. 40 minutes to 20. You threw the ball to A.J. Brown one time in that second half. At what point do you realize this doesn't work? But I digress. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield's got a shot at, I think, solidifying his position as the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this Saturday. Saturday night.
Monday.
Monday? Oh, okay, sorry, Monday. Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers, like, this is the team they would want to face. And it doesn't matter who if they beat the Eagles, I don't think it matters who they face in the second round, because you beat a team like the Eagles, you get a lot of momentum. In the playoffs, it's all about who's hot and who's not. Like, the Eagles have a better team than the Buccaneers, no doubt about it. The Eagles beat the Buccaneers in the regular season pretty convincingly, but this is a different game. Buccaneers had momentum going into this game just because of how bad the Eagles have been. And I think if they can, I wouldn't even say, I would say shock the world, I guess, because no one was expecting the Buccaneers to make the playoffs or anyone really out of the NFC South and win a playoff game. But I mean, they've lucked out with, I think, who they're playing, and they have a real shot.
I think if anyone in the NFC said we can disqualify a division from making the playoffs, it would have been the NFC South. Yeah. Holy shit, that's a problem. What is going on? Yeah. You can't. Like, everyone is, like, going crazy. We're going to talk about Dennis Allen in a moment, but this is just what is happening. I mean, talk about nonsense. Atlanta just being terrible. Carolina can't get in their own way. They keep shooting themselves in the foot at some point. It's going to happen. David Tepper's throwing drinks at people. The Saints, I mean, every time they look good one week, they look horrible the next week. And then someone had to win. If that's the only consolation I could come up with, someone had to win. And it had to be Tampa at some point. Otherwise, it would have just been even more hilarious. But you're right. I think Tampa has a great shot at this. Just because I don't see how they're going to cover Evans and Godwin. I just don't. How are you going to cover them? You're going to put James Bradberry out there? Say, okay, go cover Mike Evans? Good luck.
Yeah.
Just good luck. That's all I can say. You can't play man coverage. All of a sudden, now you're getting beat by Mike Evans. Like, I don't know what you want him to do at this point. This is not the same Bucs team. This is definitely not the same Eagles team. Like, they can't stop the run and they can't run the ball. At some point, this is bad. And I think I made my point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Saints. And really, because I only thought Dennis Allen was going to be fired. I thought there was a scenario that would play out where one team would make the playoffs in the NFC South. The other three would just fire their coaches. Because it was that bad. I said, okay, if the Saints make it, Todd Bowles is gone. Arthur Smith's gone. If the Falcons get Todd Bowles is gone. Dennis Allen's gone. That didn't happen. And then you have the decision by the players on the final week, within like the final 3 seconds of the game, to hand the ball off to Jamal Williams to score a touchdown. And as Jameis Winston put it, look, that wasn't the call, but the players went against the call. We decided we wanted to do this instead. Which, I don't know if you watch What the Football, Lucas, with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask. I don't think you do.
No.
Well, Amy Trask worked for 30 years with the Raiders, with Al Davis. They were the ones that initially hired Dennis Allen as the head coach. Okay? And I'm going to kind of take from this interview that I listened to on Tuesday. She said, he asked for a whole staff meeting when we hired him. Whole staff. Business, I had everyone there. And he came off as rude and ugly. He came off as rude, as if we didn't matter as much as the program mattered. And she's like, I gave him every bit of the depth. Because you can learn on the job and you can improve on the job. And he just never did. So when this happened, I wasn't shocked that it happened to a Dennis Allen-led team. I would have been shocked if it was anybody else. Because at some point, you have to be in uproar for your players to do this. Or you at least have to have a decision of, it's my responsibility. I should have said, you know what? No, we're kneeling no matter what. And I'll put in a quarterback that will know to kneel. I don't care if I have to put in the kicker. We're not doing this. That's what would have happened. And so that was a shock. But that was a thing I thought, okay, Dennis Allen's got to be fired at some point. Because this was terrible for him, too.
Yeah. I think what I understood was the issue was the year that Jamal Williams had previously. I mean, he was great. And this year, I think before that touchdown, he had no touchdowns all year. So I think
That's correct.
the team was upset for him, and because they were in this situation, they were like, and you know how much of a team player Jamal Williams is. Like, everyone loves him no matter where he goes. So they rallied behind him and they said, we want to give you this so you don't have the year that you had last year and then a donut this year for touchdowns. So I think it comes back to coaching anyway. Just because it wasn't Dennis Allen's call, why did Jamal Williams have no touchdowns all year besides this one play? That comes down to coaching. He had a great year last year. He's a great player.
Well, I think what this season taught you, defensively, coaching matters. Coaching matters always, but the great job by the defensive coaches this year, and I'm talking everyone, coordinators, position coaches, the great job that they have done, and a lot of them have not gotten their credit. I'm telling you, thank you. Because in my mind, you saved the league as a defense. You did. The offense is great. We love points. We love it. I'd rather have games not end 45-42 and games be 28-21. I'd much rather have that. I think that's more interesting. I think it puts more volume into the game. Because it's like baseball. Wouldn't you rather want to see a game that is 2-1 instead of 18-0? That, to me, is just more interesting. So I personally want to thank you, defensive coaches, for making this year so special. All right. So let me make sure I have this number correctly. We have Atlanta, Carolina, Raiders, Chargers, Patriots, Seahawks. Let me make sure I have all of it. I want to make sure I have coaches. Did I miss any other teams that got rid of their coaches? I think there's 7, but
Yeah, I think there's 7.
Yeah, I know there's 7. I'm forgetting a team. Oh, Titans. Okay. So it's Chargers, Raiders, Titans, Falcons, Patriots, Seahawks. Hang on. Wait. Okay, I'm losing my mind. Okay. So here we go. Oh, Commanders. Commanders too. Yes. So who do you think should get the Commanders up? You said Eric Bieniemy. Can you name another person that should have this job?
Uh,
Or
let
should
me
be
pull
at
it up.
least evaluated for this job?
I mean, let me see. I could
Because the
see
ones I think,
Vrabel being a
okay,
good guy for this situation, but I'd
yeah,
say the enemy and all.
I too would say Vrabel. I would also think possibly like I this could be like Belichick loves history. Lombardi went here. You could go that way. But what about like a Jim Harbaugh?
I think
I was
Jim
thinking
Harbaugh. That's not a bad fit. I
that's
just
a
think he's
splashy
fit.
name,
Yeah,
and the pick is high, maybe. But I too like the enemy for this job. I think your red zone offense was good. I was listening to it. The red zone offense was like, I think, was like 70, or it was like better than anyone in the league. And there was the Commanders. Tells you something.
yeah.
So then we get to the Falcons. Who do you think has this job? Or should be talked about?
By the sounds of it, it
'Cause,
sounds like the Falcons are really interested in Belichick.
yeah,
That
I don't know if that's
are,
Belichick's camp though.
I'm not sure.
I think it's
Um,
Belichick.
I think a splashy name like Belichick makes sense. I would say right now with who's available, Belichick.
I would say Belichick. I would also say I think this is a job. What about like a Ben Johnson for this job? This
I
team
can
is
see
pretty
that.
much made. I could
Yeah,
see that happening.
yeah.
Now we go to Carolina. I say Ben Johnson. He's from Carolina. I think it has to be a young coach. That's because it has to be someone who's willing to deal with Tepper's ish. So I was saying Ben Johnson, possibly an Eric Bieniemy.
I agree. I think Ben Johnson.
So as we move on, we get to the Raiders. Has to be Antonio Pierce. I don't care. Has to be Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh. Has to be.
I
Has to
say
be.
Jim Harbaugh. I think it's Jim's job.
Well, the reason I put Antonio Pierce is like this team has been way better. The wins did not say it, but they're way better with Antonio Pierce because they had an identity. Jim Harbaugh brings an identity too. That's why I have them both there. But I think Jim Harbaugh's got this job, and I think it
Yeah,
fits him. It's the Charger job.
yeah.
It's the Charger job. I think that fits him. That style, you have all this weapons. The only thing that I think concerns him is they have so dead cash flow. They have a cash flow issue because they have people they bought on. Otherwise, I think it has to be Jim Harbaugh. I don't think you can bring in anybody else. Like that's it. That's what I got. There's one option. That's it.
Yeah.
As the Titans job is interesting to me, though.
I
That's an
don't know about the
interesting job.
Titans job. Yeah.
That's such an interesting job. That and Seattle are interesting jobs because those two teams are kind of built already, at least on one side, and they have good weapons on the other. So I say for the Titans job, I think, and I wouldn't be against this. What about a Todd Munkin from Baltimore?
I could see it.
I think that just fits them. That's their style. He does a similar style. They pass. They have Hopkins. They have a good defense. I saw on Sunday, they've given up the least amount of touchdowns in the red zone as a defense. This team didn't win 10 games, but they gave up the least amount of touchdowns in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, how does that happen? So I think if you go offensive, I would not be against it.
Yep, I agree.
But I think, well, in New England, you said Vrabel, and I thought, okay, Vrabel, who else? And then I was thinking, and like, of course, I said Jim Harbaugh earlier, but that's not who I'm gonna go with. And then I saw something a couple days ago, but I said, no, I'm not gonna go there. What about like a Brian Flores?
I think if we don't hire Vrabel, then it would probably be Gerard Mayo, someone internally.
Yeah,
That'd be my guess.
I think the thing with Gerard Mayo is just unproven at this point. Only been a linebackers coach. That's the only thing
Yeah.
I think. But I do enjoy like what Dan Campbell's doing, bringing all former players as coaches. I like that. Oh, I actually, you know what? I can add a name to this for the Patriots. What about Aaron Glenn?
Yeah.
It could work, I think. I think that fits him. That style of defense is good for him. So I say, okay, as well. If you slack on Vrabel and you don't go internal, I think Aaron Glenn's a great choice.
What do you
Let's go
think
to
for Seattle?
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
I Aaron Glenn, I think, but I also think Dan Quinn.
I was gonna say,
He's a
I
Pete
think
Carroll
Dan Quinn.
guy. That would be his spot. I saw someone say, "Oh, well, the Cowboys can't afford to lose him." I'm like, he's gonna go sometime.
Yeah.
Like, at
It,
least do it what you got.
it's either the Seattle job or he would stay long enough to take Mike McCarthy's job. That'd be the only
We'll,
two.
we'll talk about Mike McCarthy right now, actually. So I put this down as media manipulation of Mike, and I was trying to explain this on Sunday. It's just for whatever reason, since Mike McCarthy's got there, the media just does not like Mike. For whatever reason, they don't like him. They just don't like him, and it's not just him. It's not just national. It's close media and all that, local media. And the only thing I can come back to is he's not from Dallas. That he's not a typical Dallas coach. He's not Tom Landry. He's not stoic. He's not Jimmy Johnson. He's not going to scream at you. He's not Barry Switzer who's going to ride the golf cart and be like, okay, let's call it a day when we don't have a good day. He's just not that guy. He runs at the beat of his own drum. So it's that's the only thing I can come back to. Because at what point can you say, okay, he's not a good coach?
Yeah, I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach, and I think he's done a good job with this Cowboys team this year. So I don't really agree with all the backlash that he gets from the media. I just think he's not like a media like darling, and that's why he gets the hate that he gets.
No, it doesn't. We're talking to Jerry Jones because Jerry Jones is one of the only owners that he'll talk to the media every chance he can and be like, because he's a camera guy. That's how he likes it. And that's fine. That's probably why he hired Mike, was because he wanted to be the forefront, which is fine. And he went and Jerry was talking about the likelihood of Mike being the coach longer than this year. And Jerry said, well, we have to. Mike got us to this point. Mike's been a great coach since he's been here, which is all true. Conveniently, the national media left that all out and used the quote that Jerry said at the end, which is, it still matters in the playoffs. We'll take it one playoff game at a time. And if we get destroyed, he didn't say this in the quote, but he basically said, if we get destroyed in the playoffs, we will circle back. Which makes sense. But they took that whole quote that he said, took that top part off and said, this is what it is. This is what Jerry said. And he's not giving Mike the job. Which is completely incorrect. It's not what he said.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it works in Dallas. All right, moving on. The All-Pros selections came out. The NFLPA, for the second year, did an All-Pro teams. The players vote on the All-Pro. I'm trying to figure out how Michael Parsons didn't get an All-Pro.
Yeah.
How did Dak Prescott not get an All-Pro? I can't figure that out. I can't. We gave Josh Allen an All-Pro. He led the league in turnovers. I don't know how he did that.
Yeah.
That just shocked me.
Cowboys.
That's the only thing I could come up with. That's the only thing. Because what else do you want the guy to do? I don't know. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah.
But anyway. We go and move into the Steelers versus Bills. Mason Rudolph is going to start in this game. First off, how do you feel about the Steelers not going back to Kenny Pickett when healthy?
I don't like it. I think you got to give Pickett the spot.
I think the concern with Kenny Pickett is this. Every time they put him out there, he does some questionable things. And I get it, he's a young quarterback. But I think that's just enough for them sometimes. So, whether we like it or not, Mason Rudolph is starting against the Bills. TJ Watt is out for this game. But when we get to the prediction portion, you will see. I think it's close no matter what happens. I think it's close than the score will indicate.
Yeah.
But back to, I said earlier, the Eagles limped into the playoffs. There's two teams that concern me, and that's the Chiefs and Dolphins. What chances do the Dolphins have against the Chiefs on Saturday night?
I think they have more of a shot than people are giving them. And people have every reason to be low on the Dolphins. They haven't beat any team outside of the Cowboys, like any real teams. They're playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have been very up and down all season long. And if there's any team that the Dolphins would play in the playoffs to get back on track, I think the Chiefs would be the right team to play. It's not going to be easy. They would have to put things together, and they'd have to figure it out this week. And come Saturday, they'd have to be prepared. It's not going to be something that the Chiefs are going to give them opportunity after opportunity to, take the win. But I honestly believe that this is the matchup that they would want, even though it's in Kansas City, even though it's in the cold, and that's what people are going to say. They're from Miami, and they're going, 0-degree weather. But I don't know. I believe it's going to be closer than what people expect.
I think the concern that I have with both teams, really, I'm concerned about this Chiefs offense. Besides Kelsey and Pacheco, there's no offense. It's Mahomes running around and hoping that he doesn't get annihilated every play. For the Dolphins, I'm like, at some point you got to beat a good team. At some point, they've had injuries. They lost Van Ginkel, who took over for Jalen Phillips, who got hurt in the Black Friday game. So they signed Justin Houston. They brought in Bruce Irvin. They brought Malik Reed in because they lost Jerome Baker, the middle linebacker who calls the plays. They are just injured beyond belief at this point. They're trying everything. Tyreek is not healthy. We'll see if Jalen Waddle plays. We'll see if Raheem Mostert plays. The offensive line is decimated. Bottom line, I am concerned about the Dolphins. I think both Dolphins and Eagles peaked too early in the year. They got to a point of, okay, we won 10 games. Or we won 8 games and we're up there. And all of a sudden now, both teams have to go on the road and won't have a home game. And that concerns me. I think if this game was in Miami, maybe a different story. But I don't even know for that, to be sure. Moving on to the Super Wildcard Weekend predictions. I can't do it, Lucas. I can't. No, I will. Super Wildcard Weekend.
All right.
So first, yeah, we got the Browns versus the Texans. Texans are getting +2.5. I tried so hard to give the Texans this game. I tried. I'm taking the Browns. For the one reason of the Browns defense and the Texans defense. The Browns defense you could win a Super Bowl with. The Texans defense I don't know what you can do with. Because it's a mess. You got CJ Stroud. I like what DeMeco Ryan's done. I think DeMeco Ryan should be the head coach of the year. Because this is a team that won 3 games last year. They're in the playoffs. They won the division. I like what he's done. So
I agree. I think Joe Flacco is a perfect game manager. The situation, he's been here. The moment's not going to be too big for him. He's going to make the right plays when he needs to, and he's not going to lose them the game. He's not going to win them the game, and he's not going to lose them the game. And he doesn't need to win the game when you have that Browns defense that they have. And I think they're going to confuse Stroud. You know, it's a playoff game in the quarterback's rookie year. Okay, he's young. It's going to be there's going to be nerves no matter what he says. Treating it like any other game, it's not. The fact of the matter is, it's not any other game. It is a playoff game. It is a big deal. I think they're going to confuse him. I think he's going to be nervous, and I think the Browns will have a field day. I don't think they're going to win by like a blowout, but I think the Browns will take this game.
I do think the Browns are going to take this game. What would be your score prediction for this game?
I don't see it being super high scoring. I don't think the Texans honestly will get too much offense in. We're probably looking at 20-14.
Interesting. So I thought, because I put on my show on Wednesday on the NFL World YouTube channel, I said 31-28 Browns. I'm going to change that here because I think it's actually going to be 2017 Browns. I think the Browns will do just enough, and I think the Texans defense will just be bad enough that the Browns win. But I think what you can come out of this if you're a Texans fan is we got our coach, we got our quarterback, and we went wire to wire with one of the best teams in the NFL and the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, it's something to hang your feel bad about. If you're a Texans fan, no matter what the outcome is Saturday, you have things to look forward to.
Absolutely. Moving on to the stick. Right, we should go in. Dolphins versus Chiefs. First up, how do you feel about this game being on Peacock?
I don't like it. I don't even know how what I'm gonna do if there's like some sort of free trial that I can use or what. But I think it's stupid. I'm gonna watch, but I think
Well,
it's
I don't.
stupid.
I don't like it either. I know the NFL's gotten a lot of clash for this, and rightfully so. This is terrible. And I guess the only thing I could come up with this morning, and it was kind of half-heartedly, was the Dolphin. If the Dolphins beat the Chiefs, they don't want anyone to see the Chiefs lose. And if
Yeah,
the Chiefs beat the Dolphins, they don't want everyone to show that the Dolphins got peaked so early in the year that they lost. Well, actually, to be fair, both these teams peaked really early in the year. To be fair,
yeah.
but the Chiefs are favored by 4 points in the cold in Arrowhead. Who do you got, Lucas?
I got the Chiefs. I think it's gonna be closer than people expect. I don't expect the Chiefs to run away with it, but and I definitely do not expect the Chiefs to make it. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make it to the AFC Championship. However, I think they're a better team than the Dolphins. I think it's going to be too cold for the Dolphins, and I think the Chiefs will win. I'll say 24-21 Chiefs.
I too have the Chiefs, and here's the reason why. This Dolphins team is, and really since it's been this way, I think, I don't know how to judge them half the time. They had 2 picks against the Bills in the end zone. Scott stopped 2 touchdowns, and they couldn't do anything. They really couldn't do anything. They had that great drive when they ran the ball to Achan over and over again. Since then, they never did anything. So I too have the Chiefs. I think it's 28-14 Chiefs because I think we have to have a serious conversation about the Dolphins during the off season. I don't know if we'll do this during the off season or not. We might do it for free agency. Probably not the first week of free agency, but if we do, we need to have a long talk about the Dolphins if they don't win this game.
Yeah,
All right, moving on to Steelers versus Bills. This is a CBS game, and when I saw first off when I saw Cowboys Packers, I said, okay, that's a Fox game. I knew it instantly. I was like, this is a Fox game. They're not going to put this game on NBC. There's no way. And when I saw the Bills were there, I'm like, okay, that's a CBS game. They're just not going to put Bills on NBC 2 weeks in a row. They're just not going to do that. Plus, with the Steelers, that would be terrible.
yeah.
But the Bills are favored by 10. Who do you got, Lucas?
I got the Bills. I don't think it's going to be close. I think the Bills will have a tough time in this playoff race, but I don't think it starts here. I'm going Bills 31, Steelers 14.
I will want to make note, DeMonte KZ is back for this game. He's been out since the Colts game, suspended. He is back. That probably won't change anything. But I too have the Bills. I think this game's going to be close. I know TJ Watt is out, but here's the reason why. This is Steelers football in a way. The nonsense of we play a game, weird things happen, we don't know why. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen fumbled twice in this game. I would not be surprised because that's Steelers football. For whatever reason, something happens. Gabe Davis looks like he's not going to play in this game. So I too have the Bills winning I said it was going to be close. I have it 24-17. Moving on into the 4 o'clock game, Packers versus Cowboys. This fluctuated from 7 to 7.5 back to 7. I have it at 7.5 because that's when I wrote it down. This, you could not get any more NFL scripted than this.
Yeah.
This postseason, you couldn't. Texans traded Deshaun Watson to the Browns. The Steelers and Bills, two of the most legendary franchises. Dolphins, Chiefs. Not to mention Cowboys and Packers have history in the playoffs. It's been 9 years, and no, we have not forgotten has caught it.
Yes.
Matt Stafford, Jared Goff going against each other in Detroit. The revenge on NBC. By the way, terrible thing. You can't wear a Matthew Stafford jersey in Detroit right now.
Yeah, that's stupid.
It's the dumbest thing in the world. That would have been like if they would have said, Peyton, now that you're in Denver, we're not going to allow Colts fans to wear your jersey. Are you okay with that? No, I own this stadium. I basically bought the land for this stadium. It's just dumb. And then the Eagles, and it's like,
Yeah.
We'll talk about that some other time. But you go first, Lucas. Cowboys, Packers.
Well, you can relax. I think the Cowboys will win this game. I do think the Packers are a good football team. I think Jordan Love is a good quarterback. I think this is in Dallas. You know, like the Cowboys Stadium, Jerry's World. It's going to be rocking. I think Jordan Love's going to make a key mistake in the game, one point or other, if not more than one, but at least one key one. And I think the Cowboys defense will probably just take advantage of that. And I think the Cowboys will win. I'll say 28-21 Cowboys.
When I was seeing this game, I was like, all right. It was that. It was in a weird way. I have to thank Carson Wentz for winning. I didn't know I was gonna have to do that in 2023. Root for Carson Wentz over Sam Darnold.
Strange times.
It was the weirdest. Good times over here. But yeah, I have the Cowboys winning. This Stephon Gilmore is gonna play. His shoulder popped out, but he's gonna play. He's gonna wear like a kind of sling of some sort. So he's gonna play out there, which I knew. By the way, I knew that way before. I was like, oh, he's fine. Okay, he's playing. No worries. Jordan Love actually is behind Dak Prescott only in passing touchdowns. Dak's got 37. Jordan Love has 32. So this game, they'll score points. This is not just a Mike McCarthy revenge game. This is an Al Harris revenge game. Al Harris played for this team. Al Harris is the cornerback coach. So you know he's got these guys ready to go. But I have the Cowboys winning. I think the Cowboys, the way they play, and this is a key for the Cowboys in the playoffs, start fast. Start very fast and allow Dak to go be Dak. But also I don't trust the Packers defense at all. I
agree though. I don't think the Cowboys can get behind in this game. I think the Cowboys need to start with the lead and they need to keep the lead. I think the Cowboys every year in the playoffs, you always have the biggest time whenever the other team gets ahead, and they'll get close. They get really close, but they can never take that lead back. If they play with the lead, the Cowboys are a way better football team.
Absolutely. I think for the Packers, You were very lucky. You found another quarterback. Like this just keeps happening for the Packers. The Bears are in mediocrity for like the last 40 years. Ever since
Yeah.
85, basically. And like they were rolling with Jim McMahon and they had all these guys. They put Doug Flutie out there once. They had to do everything. So, and the Lions, it took them like almost 100 years to get good at some point. And the Vikings, we're still working with Kirk Cousins if he's ever going to do anything again. So, the fact that you found Favre, Rodgers, and Jordan Love, and they all can have success is pretty amazing. It's a great coaching job by Matt LaFleur, definitely. But yeah, I have the Cowboys winning. It was basically a long-winded answer for me to come up with a score. Um, I have Dallas winning 35-24. I just think that's what kind of game it's going to be. I I I, I want to see how Micah Parsons looks in this game. He hasn't gotten a holding penalty in 11 games.
Yeah.
Let me put this back. He hasn't gotten a holding penalty since the Chargers in quarter number 2. That's the last time he got a holding penalty. We'll see what happens. But Cowboys win 35-24. Moving on to Rams Lions. NBC. Lions favored by 3. Who you got?
I got the Rams. I think the Steel. I think the Lions. They've looked okay throughout the season, especially the second half of the season, and I think Stafford is. Sean McVay's been to a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford has won a Super Bowl. Well, Sean McVay's also won a Super Bowl. This team's been there. They got people like Aaron Donald. They have game wreckers. I think this Lions team is young. I think this Lions team will be back here next year, but I don't think they're going to win this game. I think I got the Rams. I'll say 31-28 Rams.
I have the Rams too. Here's the reason why. Sam Laporta is out, but he suffered a hyperextension last week, which why they played him made no sense. But I guess because they wanted to get him the Gronk record for most for most touchdowns. But I think the Lions, they've been really good. And the Rams are like one of those teams that you think, how are you going to stop Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams? Like, that's just too much to handle. So I have the Rams winning. What was your score prediction for this game?
31-28.
31-28? I have this being a high-scoring game. 35-31. I think it's going to come down to Jared Goff is going to have a chance at the end, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those, like, sad memorial, like, places of we got here, and we couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Eagles versus Buccaneers. Monday night. I mean, someone had to get this game. I thought this game was going to be put on Peacock. I was like, this has to be the game on Peacock. This has to be. This game is terrible. I feel terrible for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I feel terrible for these guys. Bucks are actually not even favored at home. They're getting +3. Who do you got, Lucas?
I got the Bucks. I think it's over for the Eagles. I think they've already beat themselves. I'm going Bucks. I'll go. Jeez, it's tough. I'll go 2017 Bucks.
I'll go Bucks too. For there's a couple of reasons of this. I don't think Nick Sirianni's going to get fired, but I don't think you can keep the same staff. I just don't think you can. There's nothing. This also could be Jason Kelsey's last game, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's also a thing. So there could be major reshuffling on this offensive line next year. But it all comes back to the offense of the Bucks and the offense of the Eagles. When I saw in the Arizona game, it's 1st and 10, and you decide to run a quarterback draw. Okay, it's fine. It's 2nd and whatever it was, 2nd and 11, and you decide to run the same play again because it didn't work the first time, so therefore it should work the second time. I was like, why did you do it again? And then you get a penalty, so it's 3rd and 20, and you run a wide receiver screen.
Yeah.
And you get like 4 yards, and that was it. Once I saw that happen, I was like, I can't. I can't. I wouldn't be saying fire Sirianni because I think that would be a terrible decision. As great as this roster is, and everyone's like saying how like good the Cowboys roster is. We're not talking about the Eagles roster. We were talking about how the Eagles like completely blew the doors off the Cowboys in who they had, and how like if for years it was the Cowboys have a talent gap over the Eagles, and last year it felt like it was reversed that the Eagles had the talent gap. They were so much better. They were drafting all these guys from Georgia, Nakobe Dean. They brought in Jalen Carter this year, which it doesn't matter. You somehow brought in Jalen Carter, and yet you got worse. I don't know how you did that. So I have the Bucks winning, and I think this is going to be a sad football game for the Eagles. I think this is it's not going to be close. The score, it will be 28-14, but it won't even be that close. And that marks the end of the What a Play podcast Super Wildcard Weekend edition. A big thanks to Riverside for allowing us to stream the What a Play podcast for this week. And we will see you guys back on the divisional. Peace.